I am actually a member of the community. I have been for many years. I grew up, graduated Meditech High School. I went to college at the George Washington University in D.C. I had the pleasure of working on Capitol Hill for 2 years, introduced me to politics. The one thing I like about local politics is you can make a difference in the daily lives. At the federal level, any differences you make are somewhat delayed in the impact they'll have. At the local level, the impact's almost immediate, good or bad. I actually have 2 children. My daughter's 14, my son's 11, and they speak for all of my free time, whether it's fishing with my son or watching my daughter in a soccer game, or running to the mall and spending money that the family doesn't have that never stopped them. So I would say that being elected first as Southfield Town Assessor, being elected is an honor. It's a privilege. One thing I've always been cognizant of is never declare that you've received a mandate from the public. No one in elected office gets a mandate. The last one to get a mandate was George Washington. Everybody else just gets opportunities. And it's an opportunity that puts you on a specific time frame to produce, prove yourself, and then go out and hold yourself accountable to the electorate. In the 10 years since I've been supervisor, one of the things I'm very proud of is that I think I have shown and the board has shown is that you can be an advocate for the environment, establish a very progressive environmental agenda, and still be embraced by the Republican Party. The myth that Republican Party has nothing but disdain for environmental issues is just simply not true. There's some unfinished business. Under my terms of supervisor, we started doing a comprehensive master plan. We have several of the chapters done. We've made a great deal of progress, but there's a little bit of work that's left to be done. The land use chapter, which is really where all of the other chapters come together and embody themselves in the document. Experience and ideas. I've pitched ideas over the years and I've executed those ideas, whether it's from environmental initiatives to land preservation initiatives to economic, financial initiatives. I have experience. I have a record there. It'll be up to the voters in November to determine whether that record warrants a continuation of my term. It's a large issue, land use. Land use is the crux of everything. Land use gets back to land use, whether it's an agricultural operation, whether it's a business operation, or whether it's a residential property. Land use, managing that land use in a manner that's going to be consistent with not just our goals and our quality of life, but also from an environmental perspective. Every issue in Southfield Town that affects the environment gets back to land use. Obviously, we have a huge issue with septic flow, groundwater discharge. I'm working with Legislator Krupski and my town engineer, Michael Collins, to organize an East End administrative framework so that when the county starts to embrace alternative treatment systems, the county doesn't have the resources to oversee those systems. I would model it after the PEP and would provide an administrative framework and possibly an economic framework, because it's going to take a lot of money to make the improvements that we need to make. One of the things this group needs to do is identify where do we need to go. Everybody talks about reduction in nitrogen loading, but people, and they point to a PEP study of the Peconic Bay years ago, people should remember that study did not include sanitary flow. There was no consideration. It was focused on land use, and the land use itself was a bit outdated. We need to update that. We need to identify specifically what the nitrogen problem is, and then what level do we need to reduce it to show that it's going to be effective. None of that science has been done. Alternative treatment systems are going to be a partial solution. Do they need to go in every property in Southfield Town? Do we need to go to a certain amount of properties to reach our goals? That's the type of things we need to concern ourselves with. It's very rewarding. The people of Southfield Town have been very good to me. People tend to watch Channel 22, and the first comment is, how can you put up with that? Don't you get mad? Because there were people there that hold your feet to the fire. But they need to remember that for every one of those that you see on the Channel 22, there's 100 of them that stop you at IGA and say, good job. Even when you make mistakes, they understand. They give you some latitude in terms of recognizing that mistakes are going to happen, but they're very supportive. And I have to say, it's a great community. I'm glad I came back. I lived in Washington D.C. I lived in New York City. I'm glad I came back, and every day's been a reward. I would tell them to vote for me because I hope they find me to be responsive, and I hope they find me to recognize that public input is important to every decision we make. Sometimes I have to make decisions that might seem inconsistent with public will. The Deer Call is a good example. I had to pursue what options we had, what legal options. We have been establishing for years. We have a deer management program. We sponsor hunts on town property. They get more successful every year, but we're realistic and recognize that it's not going to solve the problem by itself. The numbers we're taking just aren't enough to make a dent. We looked at a variety of options. We have substantial restrictions on the hunting side of the equation. The financial costs of sterilization or contraceptive is just not realistically feasible. It's pie in the sky. We had a legal option. Joe Gagella came to me. He had secured funding to pay for a call. He asked each town to participate. He asked $25,000 contribution from each town. Southold was on board. I think some of the other towns were on board at first. They might have pulled back from community pressure. Southold stayed the course. Ultimately, the call was scaled back by litigation. In the end, it cost Southold $12,500, and I wouldn't hesitate to do it again if the opportunity. Although, put it this way, I don't think a call, in retrospect, was a good idea because I don't think you can put a pile of money on the table and solve the problem. But at the same time, I don't regret the decision we made. And hopefully the voters will look at me as someone that's accommodating to their views and at the same time willing to stand my ground when the decisions need to be made.